Talk back in with you guys for another show. Hope you can see me. Hope you can hear me. First off, apologies about the camera. Going to get a new one because it seems the other one has just given up on life. Unlike Arsenal. Arsenal obviously coming away with a fantastic 2-1 victory against Burnley in the Premier League, which is obviously fantastic to see. And it's a really strong performance from the Gunners. Really, really good. Thank you ever so much for everyone who is joining us in the chat box today. We're here to discuss obviously what has just happened, and so happy that so many of you are here to join us. So we're going to get some discussions, get some thoughts from you guys, and of course my thoughts as well, and go through some of the key points of the game and a lot more as we go through. But of course, if you're enjoying the series, of course, please give it a like. Please subscribe if you're new around here with those notifications turned on, so you can join in with our live chat like so many of you I can see are doing already. Let's hi some of the people in the group chat before we get started. Aaron Letchford, hi, thank you so much for tuning in, mate. Steve K is very impressed with Ceballos. And Epidemic says that Pepe has got some disgusting skills. We're going to talk about all that and more in the next 10 minutes or so. So, initial reaction, obviously, very hard-fought win. Something that we needed, something that was definitely going to be a tough game going in against Burnley. Burnley are a side in the Premier League that have shown already how much class they have and how much experience at beating oppositions and getting points against really big sides. Now, Arsenal haven't dropped any points so far against Sean Dyche's Burnley during his tenure, and they made sure of that today. But it wasn't an easy game for sure. It certainly wasn't an easy one moving ahead and playing against the likes of Ashley Barnes, who caused us problems. But if we start to talk about the first goal, Lacazette, really, really good work. Corner being played in Ceballos with the dead ball specialism, and that really was a problem for Burnley in the first half. Was our set pieces. Ceballos was really good finding the short passes. A lot of fans often see that a lot of groans coming from the crowd when it comes down to so short corners. It annoys so many fans so often because we often want to see a ball directly flung into the box as soon as possible. But it came in, and Lacazette was there brilliantly working the defender, using his muscles, using his strength to get him behind there. Was actually taken to ground, and the finish there was brilliant. So Lacazette getting off the mark immediately, obviously didn't play in the Newcastle game because of injury, came straight into starting this match. And I thought he was really bright. He offers he's sort of a midway point between what is Aubameyang's pace and then more of a strength and technical ability of other strikers in the league. And he's definitely something that offsets Aubameyang, and we need that going through the season. We need something different, and Lacazette definitely gives you a different dynamic to what Aubameyang does. And I think he definitely gave that to us throughout the season. In terms of what you guys are saying already, we've got Ceballos with 5-star skills. We got to own Ceballos. We've got to win him, basically. Pablo thinks we're going to win the league, which I think, yes, is very optimistic at this stage. Haya says that Alba's wasted on the wing. Now, of course, when we started the match, Reece Nelson was on the left, Aubameyang was on the right. Now, if you tuned into the tactical breakdown where I did a video on where does Alba go, in fact, I'll leave it in the description, that you've got a lot of statistics which broke down how Aubameyang worked on different positions on the pitch. We looked at him on the left wing, the right wing, and the striking position. Actually, on the right wing, he was more deadly. His crossing was better. His passing was better. He took more shots, and his shooting was more accurate. And actually had a better goal conversion when playing on that right wing compared to playing in a central role, which was really interesting to see. So when I found out he was going to be playing on the right with Reece Nelson on the left, it didn't concern me too much. I was surprised that he didn't go with Pepe from the start. I think that was definitely something that Emery's going to be saving for the bigger matches and obviously still integrating him into the team. But Aubameyang on the right-hand side, I thought worked really well in terms of the pace that we have. Justin O'Neill says there, sounded like a hard-fought match. Good to get minutes from Pepe and Luiz with Ceballos bossing it. On 1999 says Ceballos 5-star skills. There's some really, really hard-working stuff from Ceballos. Thomas Durkan says Ceballos is unreal. Afdeling says that Ceballos is the new Cazorla. I did notice that the crowd very tactically used Santi Cazorla's song to promote Danny Ceballos, which I thought was excellent. I think in terms of, and I'll put the tweet out saying that I don't want to say I told you so, but in terms of Danny Ceballos, I certainly did. In the tactical breakdowns that we did leading up to his arrival at Arsenal, we broke down his technical ability, how good he is on the ball, how he finds players in certain positions, how calm he is as well. And I thought that was excellent moving forwards. The Duff says that Ceballos is what Ozil should have been on about, but with a seventh of the wages. Exactly. Ceballos adds that little bit of dynamic and skill that we've really lacked moving forwards. Break the bank to sign Ceballos, says Ada Damola. Sell Aubameyang, says Steve K. I think he's pulling one over us there. Top of the league so far, lad, says Prince. Of course, we have played more games than anyone else in the league so far. which is obvious. And Liam Goss says there that Sabas reminds me of Cazorla so much, but there is only one Santi Cazorla. I think that when we've got players like Sabas playing at midfield, what was interesting is that Willock played in a more deeper role. And actually, with Willock playing in that deeper role, we saw him driving out from the midfield a lot. And in a tactical breakdown that we'll do on Monday/Tuesday with Drew and Graham, I'm sure that we're going to be looking at the performance of Willock playing in that deeper position and seeing how he drives out. I thought that Guendouzi had a much more quiet game compared to Newcastle. He wasn't sort of in the spotlight as much as he was on Tyneside. But when we're looking forward to what we're going to do with that midfield moving forward, you're going to see Sabas playing more regularly. Ozil will obviously come back when he is fit. And I think that Sabas will play in that slightly deeper role behind Ozil with either Xhaka or Torreira in behind. Willock's obviously more of an offensive player than more of a defensive one. And so I think we'll see sort of a midfield change. We need more quicker... We are more quicker with the ball without one-footed Xhaka. Now, that's an interesting comment from the Duff because I actually tweeted out earlier on in the game saying I think we lacked a bit of pace in our passing, and that comes from taking Xhaka out of the team. And I know that it's a controversial statement. I know that Xhaka has a lot of criticism, and for good reason. He loses the ball in stupid positions, and he's very slow physically. But actually, in terms of his passing, he helps us tick over a lot more. Xhaka spreads the ball wide very, very well. And we actually could have done with Xhaka spreading the ball much quicker than we saw with Guendouzi and Willock. I think Willock struggled in certain positions on the pitch to sort of get the ball out quickly, whereas Xhaka can actually turn and play the ball out quite accurately. So in that, I think we missed him. But the midfield obviously was a bit makeshift. It was here and there, but we came through with it very confidently. Avon Teddington says that Sabas offers more defensively. He is more combative than Ozil is. Really good adjective to describe him there. Abram says Pepe ruining defenders and we're only 2 games in. So let's move forward to the sort of the point where obviously we conceded. It was a really, really stupid error from Arsenal. And it actually goes to show the defensive side of the game still is not up to scratch. David Luiz obviously coming in and starting. I thought he had a decent game. Positionally, still it's a concern. It really is. And that needs to be talked about. Whilst his technical ability and his passing and his movement is very good, his positioning is still something that Arsenal need to be concerned about. We need to move forward with this Arsenal side, considering how David Luiz is positioned. He completely lost Barnes, as O'Malley actually says there in the chat. He lost Barnes completely, and Barnes was left so often, so free in the box. So many of their players were in the tactical breakdown going to make it a prerogative that we look at the space that was left by the defence and how many players were left free in that box to sort of move around, find space, and get, obviously, crosses came in. Burnley are all about the crossing. And if you tuned in for the tactical breakdown last week, what we saw was that Newcastle were able to fling crosses into the box very, very easily. No one really closed down the space. And that's exactly what happened today. Crosses were coming in left, right, and centre very easily. And what was even more concerning is that compared to Newcastle, Burnley found a lot more space. And that's obviously what led to their goal. Yes, it was a deflected effort that led to their chance and got to Barnes in the end. But someone should have been tighter. Why it's Guendouzi that's there in that position covering him, I have no idea. Where Monreal was, where the other centre-backs were, where the deep-line midfielders were, I don't know in this situation. It was really concerning that Guendouzi was the player in that position. And ultimately, I don't really blame it on Guendouzi. He tried as much as he could to get the foot in front of Barnes, but ultimately he couldn't do anything and he scored. And going into half-time, that's often been sort of a weakness of Arsenal's. When we concede just before half-time, it means that our heads go down, confidence is dropped, and so we really need to push on in the second half. And we did do that. There was some sort of there was a bit of a disconnect between the midfield and the forward line in the first 5 minutes, especially when Pepe came on. He looked bright, he looked exciting, and a lot of people wanted to see him come on and do what he can do. He tried to hold on to the ball a bit much. He actually looked a bit like Ceballos did in the Newcastle game, trying to come on and really make an impression as much as possible, really trying very hard to try and get the crowd behind him and get his confidence up and integrate as much as possible. But that will come with time, and we've seen that a player like Ceballos, who had a real big confidence game against Newcastle, came in and tried to impress. We actually saw with Pepe that hopefully in the next couple of games, which are really big games for Arsenal against Liverpool and, of course, against Tottenham in the North London derby, that Pepe will grow into those matches and he will improve and he won't be necessarily trying to force it as much as I felt he did do today, and he will be more free. But we did do, as some of you guys are saying in the chat box, we saw a lot of skills, we saw a lot of confidence from the Ivorian winger, and I think that's something that we will see grow and improve as the games go on. But it was again Ceballos that led to the point at which Arsenal would then score in their second goal, which ultimately led to be the winning goal in the game. Ceballos winning it after losing it initially, fought back, determination, confidence, getting that ball back, getting a foot in, and that dropped to obviously Aubameyang, who cut inside, and the shot to the bottom left or the bottom right of Pope and the bottom left of the goal was a sublime effort and something that we've seen from Aubameyang in the past. People, and myself included, were really quite concerned about Aubameyang on the left. As I said, I'll put it in the description of the video, and where we look at the statistics for Aubameyang compared to his right, left, and central positioning, we saw that Aubameyang actually is quite tame on that left-hand side. Isn't as good with his passing, isn't as good with his dribbling, and his duels weren't as good either. But actually, when he cuts inside and he's able to put a shot in, I think it was really, really good. Ceballos says that Ankle Sock says that Ceballos ran non-stop. And Fed, I'm going to get these names so wrong throughout these, and I'm so sorry. Says, imagine when we get Bellerin back. I think with Bellerin and Tierney in particular, when we get those two back, this side are going to be excellent moving forwards. Seeing Bellerin playing his balls, cutting those balls back, playing to the byline much more accurately and much more effectively than what we've seen with Ainsley Maitland-Niles. I actually thought that AMN had a really difficult match. Yes, he had some decent chances where he sort of cut the ball back quite well, but I thought his crossing was quite poor today. I thought his cutbacks were quite poor, and actually compared to the Newcastle game, which for me is his standout performance of his career, and he was fantastic, it was going to be tough for him to sort of mirror that performance in an equal way, and I think his performance did drop. So with Bellerin coming back in a few weeks or so, when we see him in October, I think we'll definitely see an improvement on that right-hand side. And with Pepe and Bellerin as a combination, I think it's going to work really, really well. Similar to Monreal, I think Monreal actually played much, much better than he did against Newcastle. Again, he was up into the opposition half. It was really unfortunate he couldn't actually get that cross in more onside for Nelson when Nelson had that goal ruled out by VAR for offside. But I think that he's going to be someone that it's obviously in his final year, Nacho Monreal, and he's going to do a real good job while we wait for Kolasinac to come back into the full side properly. And of course, wait for Kieran Tierney to return to the side with full fitness. I'm really intrigued to see how those two work when they come back in. But ultimately, focusing back on today, there were some standout players from the Arsenal side today. I think we ripped Burnley apart in certain areas, but ultimately there were some scenarios. Burnley played a really high line at certain points, but were very good at dropping that back quickly, and obviously meaning that Arsenal had to sort of play around them and play through them. And Martin Keown in the commentary, if you were watching on Sky Sports, said that Arsenal's passing needed to be quicker, especially in the final third, and it just wasn't. We didn't sort of have the accuracy and the dynamic incision that we've seen from some Arsenal sides in the past. We sort of lacked that quickness of play, and that meant that we really struggled to create enough chances. Burnley were creating them non-stop because as soon as they got the ball, they tried to get it into the box as directly as possible. But certain with Arsenal situations, what we saw was sort of a lack of connection between the midfield and the wingers and the strikers, and we couldn't really get our free-flowing passing as often. There were different sparks and flitters of these things going on, but not in sort of a consistent way. Let's look at some more of your comments before we talk about some more highlights. Amir says that Monreal was great, truly. 187-ish says that don't do AMN what we did to Iwobi. He had a good game against a tough team. He definitely did, and we're not going to slate him like we did Iwobi, but it's obviously when you have someone to criticise, there were certain issues to his game. Ashwin says, Louise, with those long passes down, once Alba starts getting used to it, we're going to kill teams. And I think that's something that if you watch the tactical breakdown of David Luiz, where I interviewed someone from Football Radar, especially talking about Chelsea, actually it was from Reed Chelsea. And we interviewed a guy who basically knew all about David Luiz, and we talked to Tony from Chelsea SW6. And they both talked about how David Luiz's long-range passing in behind was going to be really key for Arsenal moving forwards. And we saw that in the first half. There was a chance that Aubameyang ran onto from a David Luiz pass that I think led to a corner. And that's going to be something that we can really utilise at Arsenal. David Luiz moving forwards with the ball and then flinging that ball in behind for Aubameyang, Pepe or Lacazette to run onto. And that's going to be really key moving forwards. Angles Ox said Emery doesn't fancy Torreira because he can't really pass. I think that Torreira will come into the side eventually on a much more regular occasion. I think it was just today that we didn't see him in as much effectiveness, especially because he's still coming back from the Copa America. Get Out Stan Kroenke says that I predict that Aubameyang will best Vardy's record of scoring in consecutive back-to-back games, but Arsenal won't win the league this season. That would mean he needs to score against Liverpool and Tottenham in the next two games. That's a big ask. But it's possible. He's got this, obviously the skill and the ability and the finishing ability as well, and the confidence now to possibly do that. The Duff says there that I'm assuming Torreira isn't starting because he's back from the Copa America and is resting him for Liverpool. Definitely, I agree with that. Wilson says that Ceballos was absolutely outstanding today. Glenn Cook says that Ceballos' work rate was immense. It definitely was. My Country says that Pepe showed he can boss it. He was fantastic. He has skills that can rip teams apart. Luiz was confident today with some smart passes. I think that's probably a good place to leave it. Thank you ever so much for tuning in, people. Obviously, if you're watching on playback, please leave your comments in the description about how you feel Arsenal performed today. Tactical breakdown will be out on either Monday or Tuesday with Graham and Drew breaking down all the tactical and analytics side of the game. And of course, the podcast will be out tomorrow at 9 o'clock on Sunday, as it always is, unless I'm away, of course, like I will be next week. But tomorrow, 9 o'clock on Sunday, we're with the podcast with two of our regular guests talking about today's game in a little bit more detail from their perspective. But thank you ever so much for tuning in. If you've enjoyed it, please, of course, give it a like. Please subscribe if you're new around here and turn those notifications on, because you'll get to tune in the live chat and get your comments highlighted on the screen and talked about, like so many of you guys have as well. Fantastic to get those 3 points. I'm really, really glad that we did do that. And it's going to be interesting seeing us moving forwards in the league with some of these players like Sabas and Pepe in a more integrated way. Thank you for tuning in. As always, up the Arsenal in a fantastic way to get those 3 points. See you very soon.